from the Pentagon as they expect now more attacks could be happening, and that car bombs could also be very likely, as well, as you heard there from the official update. You're watching Live Now from Fox. Thank you so much for continuing to join us right here. We are going to continue our coverage like we have been all morning long, and then unfortunately that update that continues to get worse there. The 12 U.S. service members killed there in Afghanistan with the terror attacks here. Let's continue to get some more coverage right now. We are going to go out. Joining us via Zoom, Michael Pregent, a former U.S. intelligence officer and a fellow at the Hudson Institute. Michael, thank you so much for joining us here on Live Now from Fox. And I think that you're muted right now. If you could just unmute, and we'll be able to hear you and get some insight from you. Michael, thanks again for joining us here. And first off, what are some of your reactions just hearing from the Pentagon right here?
We just heard a defense of the Taliban. That's what I heard. And it's very disappointing to those of us that know the enemy, to those of us that served in Afghanistan and know the enemy, to hear a CENTCOM commander say that this was ISIS-K and ISIS-K alone. So let's break that down real quick. The Haqqani network, an al-Qaeda affiliate, has command and control of Kabul. The Taliban is manning all the checkpoints and conducting roving patrols. And we just had a suicide bomber attack 2 different locations. You can't do that without the Haqqani network knowing. You can't do that without passing Taliban checkpoints. Though our enemies may not like each other when we're not present, when we are present, we are the main focus. And I just heard a defense of the Taliban. And I also heard that they've evacuated, they only have about 1,000 to 1,500 Americans left. It's not true. There's 4,000 to 7,000 Americans left in that country. And it's not because they chose to stay, it's because they couldn't get to the airport. And that's what I heard. I heard a defense of the Taliban, and I heard the defense of why we're going to end up leaving Americans behind.
And Michael, why do you feel like there has been this tiptoeing with the administration and the Pentagon with the Taliban almost really providing cover for the Taliban?
Well, if it was a Taliban attack, it embarrasses the administration. If it was an al-Qaeda attack, it embarrasses the administration. We have to remember, the administration says that they are deconflicting the battle space with the Taliban, and that the Taliban are letting, in most instances, that's what they say, letting Americans through. They are also saying that al-Qaeda has been defeated. The president said al-Qaeda is gone. If this is an al-Qaeda attack, if this is a Taliban attack, it embarrasses the administration. So there's this full push to say it's ISIS-K. And if it is ISIS-K, the Haqqani network, an al-Qaeda affiliate, the Taliban, an ally of al-Qaeda, facilitated the attack, allowed the attack to happen. Again, they will put aside their differences when they have a focus. And that focus is to make us bleed on the way out.
And now, Michael, can you just give us some insight? What do you think now is going to happen next here with this situation in Afghanistan? It's bad enough that we have the U.S. service members killed, but what will happen in these next coming days?
Well, we're likely to wake up to additional attacks or have them happen again tomorrow. This is just the first wave. You come in with the suicide bombers, you test U.S. resolve. Then the next phase will be you conduct an attack on the airfield, whether it be a mortar or a rocket attack or any attack, because the airfield sits in a bowl. You can literally hit the airfield with a sniper rifle, with a heavy machine gun from the high ground, whether it's a high rise, whether it's the high ground around the airport. So we're likely to see more attacks. We're also likely to see, unfortunately, Americans captured by these groups. Their mission is to go out and capture Americans. There are between 4,000 and 7,000 Americans left in Afghanistan. The reason I say that is because that's what the administration was saying, 48 hours ago. And then all of a sudden they said, we've evacuated a total of 4,800, and only 1,500 remain. And the math doesn't add up. They are getting ready to leave Americans behind, and those Americans, unfortunately, could be on their knees in front of terrorist flags on the 20-year anniversary of the 9/11 attacks. We just gave Afghanistan back to all of our enemies. And I've heard some people say that some people are saying that Afghanistan will become a safe haven for terrorism. It already is. It already is a safe haven for terrorism. And I just believe we're going to continue to send American sons and daughters back to Afghanistan to deal with these existential threats that we continue to allow to prosper because of really bad policy. And to not see Secretary Austin today, and to not see General Milley, the top general of the armed forces, was not present today. The Secretary of Defense was not present. And then for General McKenzie to say what he just said, I expected more from General McKenzie. And he said this: no one feels worse about this than I do. What about the parents of those Marines that were killed today? Those members of the 82nd Airborne Division? No. We're not hearing from our leaders. We're hearing a narrative that this was an ISIS attack and that the Americans that we leave behind chose to stay.
Well, some would say even, why haven't we heard from President Biden yet there? Obviously, he is still getting briefing and updates on the situation, but we haven't even seen a tweet put out by the POTUS account or Joe Biden. What is your thoughts on that, where some people are saying, where is President Biden during this very difficult time for America?
I think the Americans have pretty much given up faith in our commander-in-chief, but they expect more from our generals. General Milley has disappointed. We just heard General McKenzie disappoint, and we haven't heard from Secretary Austin since Sunday when he did a taped interview for CBS News. The president's going to come out and he'll probably talk about something completely unrelated to Afghanistan, whether it be COVID, vaccines, cybersecurity, the infrastructure program. We need a commander-in-chief that can have his mind changed by facts on the ground. A commander-in-chief that is willing to change his mind based on facts on the ground and the developing situation. And more importantly, we need generals to tell him, sir, you need to change your mind. This is a bad situation. We need to expand the cordon. They should have done this days ago. We can't go back in time to fix this, but we cannot find the leadership when it comes to Afghanistan right now from the White House, from the Pentagon, or from the State Department.
And with these thousands of Americans now that are, after they saw what happened, they heard the reports, maybe even they saw it unfold there in real time. Michael, what do you think these Americans that are stranded right now are ultimately thinking? I mean, they have to be thinking the absolute worst.
Well, we've been in contact with people on the ground that are in that situation, both Afghans and Americans alike. And it's keep your cell phones charged, stay in a safe place, move around with trusted people, and just wait. We're trying to get the administration to do the right thing, but there's this whole veteran community, special ops community, and former intel community ramping up operations to go get Americans because our government won't do it. We have heard there have been some CIA operations and special operators that have gone out to get Americans, but it's a handful. There are 4,000 to 7,000 Americans left that want to get out. And the argument the administration is making that those that we couldn't get out chose to stay. It's just not true. They couldn't get to the airport. They couldn't get there because it was too dangerous. They couldn't get there because the Americans did not expand the cordon. And when I say that, I'm not talking about the soldiers, Marines, sailors, and our military. I'm talking about the leaders. The leaders could not convince a disinterested commander-in-chief from doing the right thing and sending firemen to a fire. You ask the military what they would want to do, they'd want to go get every American in that country and they'd want to go kill bad guys. But we're hearing from military leadership that continue to say that all is well, that the evacuation is going as planned, and that we expected ISIS to conduct an attack like this, and that any American left behind chose to stay.
For those of you just joining us here on Live Now from Fox, we are talking via Zoom to Michael Pregent, a former U.S. intelligence officer. Michael, we're just getting a statement in from Secretary of Defense Lloyd Austin. He put out this statement. I want to read it out, and then I want to get your reaction to this statement right here. It says, on behalf of the men and women of the Department of Defense, I express my deepest condolences to the loved ones and teammates of all those killed and wounded in Kabul today. Terrorists took their lives at the very moment these troops were trying to save the lives of others. We mourn their loss, we treat their wounds, and we will support their families in what will most assuredly be devastating grief. But we will not be dissuaded from the task at hand. To do anything less, especially now, would dishonor the purpose and sacrifice these men and women have rendered our country and the people of Afghanistan. I have to ask you, Michael, what say you?
That's pretty long statement from a Secretary of Defense that should be saying something completely different. That says, of course, the Secretary of Defense is right to say, all of the words about the loss of life today, but he removed himself from that decision making that led to that loss of life. Secretary of Defense is responsible for advising the Commander-in-Chief on the threats to Americans in Afghanistan and the threats to our force in Afghanistan. And no measures were taken to expand the cordon, to protect our force at the airfield, to expand the cordon, to get Americans in, and to basically make this a conditions-based withdrawal instead of a self-imposed deadline by a Commander-in-Chief who is listening to the Taliban dictate to us when we're supposed to leave and what we can and cannot do.
And Michael, lastly here, as a former U.S. intelligence officer, someone who represented our country, what are how do you feel today as you see the news, you see the headlines, and you woke up to the news? How do you feel first as an American and then as a former intelligence officer?
I'm a veteran of 3 wars. I served in this war as well in the military, and I can just echo the statements of my fellow veteran community and my friends inside the active duty force. They are embarrassed of the lack of leadership from this administration. We lost 20 years because of bad strategies from politicians, not the members of the military on the ground. And we just gave back a country to our enemies, and we made them stronger than they were before 9/11, not because of soldiers, not because of Marines, not because of our military, not because of our intelligence community, but because of politicians. So I would honestly tell you, I'm ashamed of our leadership, and I'm not alone.
Michael Pregent, thank you so much, and really thank you for your service as well to our country here and talking to us on a very dark day in America and really across the world as well. We appreciate your insight and talking with us today. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.
No problem. And we continue to bring you more live coverage right here on Live Now from Fox. Everybody, I'm your host, Mike Page, as we continue to update you on the situation there in Afghanistan. You heard there from the former intelligence officer. They're mincing no words there and really taking the odds there. The Biden administration for what he is calling their lack of leadership involved in this crisis here. We will be hearing from the White House to see what they have to say about the situation. It's expected to happen pretty soon from the White House briefing room. We will be bringing that to you when it happens right here on Live Now from Fox. Stay right here with us as we enter